Hi everyone! A few days ago I posted a video comparing the silhouettes of the 2011 stock, 2014 stock, and the new 2015 Hourglass Silhouette stock of the standard length underbust corsets from Timeless Trends. I didn't want the whole video to be 20 minutes long, so I broke it up into two parts. If you want to see the silhouette comparison, click the link on the screen or the information card. This video will deal with the fine details and construction. Okay, so on the right here is a discontinued style. This is the Spring Delight, which was made around 2011. And here is the new Hourglass Silhouette underbust corset in the blue floral brocade. Obviously, there are all sorts of different colors and styles available. In terms of the number of layers and materials, and so they're very similar. So both of these have a fashion fabric of a polyester-based satin, and that is directly fused or laminated to a cotton twill. So that is the interlining. And then both of them on the inside here, both of them on the inside have a lining also in cotton twill. This one, they usually use the white cotton twill for the lighter shade corsets and the black cotton twill for darker hued corsets. Both of these corsets have a 6-panel pattern. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you can see, looking at the individual shapes of each panel, how the pattern is different. So the first panel is fairly similar. You can see that both of them are kind of straight. They actually taper down towards the bottom. And so the bones converging down towards the center front helps to give a little bit more control over the tummy area. For the second panel, you can see how this one is, it tapers a little bit, but is more or less straight, whereas in this one, it's more apparent in the larger sizes especially, but in the second panel it almost is shaped like a champagne flute. So it's fairly straight here, and then starting from the waist it kind of flares outward a little bit to give some room for the front rib there. And you can also see panels 3 and 4, there is a lot more curve over the hip area here compared to the older style. Another thing that we did was we added a little bit more ease in the top in panels 5 and 6 right there. And so you can see that if I straighten this out, there is just very slightly more curve to this very back panel to help curve over the lumbar area a little bit better than the original. And construction-wise, both of them are assembled the exact same way using the sandwich method. So the fashion fabric was all assembled from front to back. Same with the lining fabric inside, and then they were anchored at each seam there. And then the bones, double boned at the seams, sandwiched in between the two layers. You can still see that both the new and old styles have the same way of putting in the waist tape. So it's invisibly stitched. It's hidden between the layers, and they're both 1/2 inch wide, extending right from the front busk all the way to the back grommets there. Here's a close-up of the binding, and depending on the type of fabric and the color of the corset, they may use different types of binding. So for instance, in this one, they use what looks to be bias strips of matching satin to the black here, and it's machine stitched on both the outside and on the inside. On the inside, you can see that there is a little bit of a top stitch right there, and on the outside you can see that they stitched in the ditch. Here's the binding on the white dyeable cotton corset. So it is made from bias strips of the matching white cotton fashion fabric here. So when you go to dye this corset any color you want, then the binding will match. It will have the same saturation. And in the case of thicker materials like vinyl or PVC or leather, you can see that they stitched in the ditch here, so it's folded under on the outer side, but then on the underside they just left it raw and cut it since it's not going to fray, and that helps reduce the bulk of the binding as well. So in the back of the corset, neither the old nor the new styles come with a Modesty panel in the back. There were a few reasons for this. One, it uses up a lot of fabric, and two, a lot of people tend to just be really frustrated with their Modesty panels and cut them out anyways, especially if they're unstiffened. However, Timeless Trends has started selling stiffened and separate Modesty panels that you can purchase separately. Right now it's only in white or black, but I have talked to them about doing a few other colors. One thing that is different between the old and the new styles, though, is that the old style does not have a Modesty placket under the busk, whereas the new styles all do have Modesty plackets by the knob side of the busk here. So you'll notice at the beginning of the video, when I was wearing this corset, you could actually see a little bit of the dark pink of my shirt poking through the busk there, but with these new corsets, you won't have that happening. Both the old and new styles have a 10-inch long busk, which is half an inch wide on each side, so it's a standard flexible busk, and both of them have the adjacent flat steel bone that helps to make it a little bit stiffer. And if I bend the fabric above and below the busk, you'll see that there is about an inch of extra fabric above and below, so like 2 inches total. Whereas in this one, you can see that we have made the top edge here a little bit more of a mild curve as opposed to a dramatic point in this older style. And so there's less of that floppy fabric above and below the busk. Now, I'm not sure if it comes out really clearly on video, but the adjacent flat steel that is right next to the busk there, that is 10 3/4 inches long. So that is almost an inch longer than the busk itself. So when Sarah and I were going through the different generations of mock-ups, forming the new patterns, we originally wanted to make the center front of this corset even shorter, like closer to 11 inches, so that the length of the busk itself would fully fill out the channel, or at least a little bit better. And that would help with, when you see some corsets, even when they're fastened up, the busk seems to separate a little bit, kind of like that. So it would help with something like that. And it would allow people with an even shorter torso to be able to wear these corsets effectively. But they had something like 10,000 of these length bones in stock. So we made a compromise and decided, okay, well, for these batches, we're going to make the center front length 11.5 inches, but future corsets, so many months or years down the line, will be made a little bit shorter. Just about half an inch shorter once they use up these length bones and they move on to using bones that are the same length as the busk. These corsets each have a total of 26 steel bones, 13 on each side. You can see when I test it with my magnet, it tends to pull quite strongly actually. And so double boned on the seams here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Those are 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bones, double boned on the seams. Same with this one as well. And once again, the flat steel bone by the busk and the 2 flat steel bones sandwiching the grommets right there. So some people have noticed that the boning channels have gotten narrower in the newer style corsets, and yes, that's true. Actually, the width of the bones in these two corsets, when I opened them up, were actually exactly the same. It's just that the boning channels in these older ones are a little bit wider. So I guess it was easier for them to put the bones in, but they were a little bit loose in their channels. So they actually started making the boning channels tighter, especially tighter in the center back here, sandwiching the grommets, so that they're less likely to bow. Comparing the grommets here, in 2010, 2011, they still had these grommets with a slightly wider flange around them, whereas in the later corsets, probably from about 2012 onward, it seems, they started using these grommets with a slightly smaller flange. And I was initially a little bit worried about, whether these grommets would rip out, but actually they're holding in very well. And, they do have a lifetime guarantee on all of their corsets, so they must really, test them a lot and have a lot of trust in them. So both of the grommets, they're both the same number of grommets on each side, so that you can see that the lacing method is the same for both corsets here. And yeah, both of them are holding in quite well. Both of them seem to be about size 0 grommets in terms of the internal diameter of the hole there, and equidistantly spaced. On the inside, you can actually see that the grommets look very, very similar, or the washers at least look very similar. So you can see how similar they are. So both of them, they don't have very many splits. Those that are split don't catch on the laces or anything, and they all seem to be holding in quite well. And the laces that you get in the back of the corset will also vary depending on the style you're getting. So do read the listings to see if you're getting the ribbon or the shoelace style laces. So as often as possible, if they do have a ribbon in stock that is the same color as the rest of the corset, then they will often use the ribbon. But in some other styles where they believe that the laces either look better or function better, for instance, in the black cashmere corsets, they use the black flat polyester or nylon laces because those are a little bit more hard wearing and longer lasting compared to the single face 1/2 inch wide ribbon here, then they will go with that option instead. And then I got my leather corset here. So a few years ago they switched from cotton to using these flat polyester shoelaces. So these ones seem to fray less, like they have less like fibrous shredding to it, and they have less spring to it, and they seem to be a little bit flatter compared to the fluffy cotton lacings. And obviously they last a lot longer, because I have broken some cotton laces in the past. I have never broken one of these polyester laces. If you do get a corset with ribbon, it will be single phase satin ribbon, so it's shinier on one side compared to the other, and the two sides are a different texture. So the single phase satin ribbon is not as strong as a double phase satin, like I mentioned in my long line corset video. But if you're not tight lacing a whole lot, then these work quite nicely. But if you are going to be waist training, then I do prefer something closer to these polyester shoelace style laces. And for the standard length underbust corsets, where they have the 28 grommets in the back, I do find that the length of the laces are suitable. I can definitely open it wide enough to get into and out of the corset fine. For the long line underbust corsets though, I tend to get overbust length laces for that one, because they do have a few more sets of grommets in the back there. So this concludes the showcase and the comparison between the original Silhouette and the Hourglass Silhouette standard length underbust corsets from Timeless Trends. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it informative. If you did, please remember to click that like button down there, as it helps support the channel. If you have any comments or questions about these corsets, Timeless Trends in general, or how we patterned these, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to get back to you and answer any of your questions. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!